ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्कारूपेण मच्चित्तं पङ्कीकृतमभूद्यया किङ्करी यस्य सा माया शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये। प्रह्लादवरदो देवो यो नृसिंहः परो हरिः। नृसिंहोपासकं नित्यं तं नृसिंहगुरुं भजे। श्री सच्चिदानंद शिवाभिनव्य नृसिंह भारत्यभिधान यतीन्द्रान् विद्यानिधीन् मन्त्रनिधीन् सदात्मनिष्ठान् भजे मानव शम्भुरूपान्। सदात्मध्यान निरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखम् नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखर भारतीम्। विवेकिनं महाप्रज्ञं धैर्यौदार्यक्षमानिधिं सदाभिनवपूर्वं तं विद्यातीर्थगुरुं भजे। अज्ञानां जाह्नवीतीर्थं विद्यातीर्थं विवेकिनां सर्वेषां सुखदं तीर्थं भारतीतीर्थमाश्रये। विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विदुशेखरभारतीम्। ओम नमस्ते. We are looking at Atma Bodha, which is the verse by Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada, which talks about how one can get Atma Jnanam. So far, we had seen the first 12 verses of the Atma Bodha, and verse number 12 was Panchīkrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam Karma Sanchitam Shariram Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoga Yatanam Uchyate. So we were talking about the micro adhyasa, wherein on to the one consciousness, because of different upadhis, we are projecting the physical body, and that projection of the physical body, the projection of the subtle body, the projection of the causal body. We are going to look at the three kinds of shariras, or the sharira trayam, which is mentioned in Vedanta Shastra. And collectively, these three projections are called Vyashti Adhyasa, or micro Adhyasa, micro superimposition. In the previous verses, we had looked at the macro Adhyasa, or the Samashti Adhyasa, the superimposition of the world onto that one consciousness. One thing that I have noticed in our Atma Bodha sessions is that whenever we have an Atma Bodha session, whether it is Shukla Panchami or once previously when it happened during a Vijayadashami, there is always a talk by Jagadguru Srimad Bharati Tirtha Mahaswamigal or Jagadguru Srimad Vidushekara Bharati Mahaswamigal, which almost coincides with the day of the Atma Bodha talk. And in fact, there was a talk that was released today on YouTube. Many of you may have seen it. If not, we can send a link to those who are interested. Wherein Jagadguru Srimad Vidushekara Bharati Mahaswamigal Sannidhanam, he had talked about how it is possible for the one consciousness to be divided into Ishvara, Jiva, and the Jagat. And he had given a very beautiful example in that context. Because it is relevant to us, I am bringing that up. Essentially, Sannidhanam had said that in a piece of paper, if you were to draw a big circle and small circles, the space occupied by the big circle appears to be big, the space occupied by the small circle appears to be small, but it is drawn within one paper only. And if you were to write a lot of things inside the space occupied by the big circle, we will not be able to write the same amount or same quantity of things in the small circles also. Why? Because of the circle upadhi. Because that same one white paper is divided seemingly into big circle and many small circles. Similarly, the one Satchidananda Atma The one consciousness is seemingly divided because of upadhi bheda, because of different upadhis or different adjuncts, different bodies into Ishvara who has a Maya upadhi and Jiva who has an avidya or an antahkarana upadhi. And there are many, many antahkaranas, and therefore there are apparently many, many jivas. There is one vast Maya, and therefore it appears that there is one Ishvara who is Sarvagya, who is omniscient, who can see everything, who knows everything. He's Trikala Jnani. He knows everything that has happened, that is happening, that will happen also. And it is not like an inference, that is an indirect knowledge. It is a direct perception. He has directly seen the future. He has directly seen the past. He's directly seeing the present. He is also Sarvashaktiman. He can create this vast universe by the mere sankalpa, by the mere thought. Let the universe be. He can create the universe. That is his Shakti. Whereas Jivas, they are not able to create this vast universe. They are hardly able to build one house. We all know from our personal experience, we know what we are capable of and what our limitations are. So as long as one is associated with this body and the mind, one considers oneself to be a jiva, one thinks that I am limited, I have these problems. But once one has given up the abhimana with the sharira, the association with the body, then we realize that what we are is actually that consciousness. So long as there is the sharira abhimana, we will be a limited jiva. Once we transcend the sharira abhimana, we will be not Ishvara, we will be Satchidananda Atma. We will be Brahman. So that is the crux of the talk that Sannidhanam had given. And hopefully people can listen to that talk. I would encourage everyone to listen to it because it is a very, very lucid explanation given by Sannidhanam to what can be a tricky topic. Anyway, so in this 12th verse that we had seen, Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam Karma Sanchitam Shariram Sukha Dukkhanam Bhogayatanam Uchyate. So what we had seen is that we are talking about the physical body here. And Shankaracharya says that this physical body is a product of the Panchikrita Mahabhutam, the great elements, Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. Space, air, fire, water, earth. And what kind of Mahabhuta? It's Panchikrita Mahabhuta. And in the previous session, we had talked about the process of Panchikaranam, wherein first these 5 subtle elements are created from the Atma, and then these 5 elements intermix to create the gross elements. So each of the gross space, gross air, gross water, gross fire, gross earth comprises within it the other 4 elements also. The main component for, say, gross air is the subtle air. 50% of it is the subtle air, and then the remaining is equally mixed up with the other 4 elements we had seen. So this physical body is a product of those 5 elements, Acharya is saying. And how do we get this physical body? Acharya said, karma sanchitam. It is because of the karmas that we have performed in the previous births. So in Sanatana Dharma, it is we consider that Srishti and Samsara is Anadi. It has been carrying on from time immemorial. And in every birth, there is a new physical body that we as Jivas get. And that physical body is a result of the karmas that have been done in the previous births. Now, somebody may ask, what about the very, very first birth then? What karmas happened that led to the creation of the body in the very first birth? To which we say that is not possible because there is no beginning at all to samsara. For every birth, there is always some previous birth and some karma that has been done in the previous birth, which has fructified into creating a physical body for the next birth. So it is karma sanchitam, and therefore the subtle corollary to be made from that is that we should therefore strive to perform only punya karma and avoid papa karma, because the physical body is karma sanchitam, and if we perform punya karma, we will get a good body, a good set of circumstances, a good birth in a good family. And if you don't do that, then we may get a inferior body, an inferior birth, and suffer inferior circumstances. Therefore, we must perform the punya and papa. We must perform punya and avoid papa, as has been laid by the scriptures. And then this shariram, it's called shariram because it is subject to decay. The physical body is subject to decay. The lifetime of a physical body is the time period from birth to the death of the physical body. So when we talk about death and birth, it is not the birth and death of the jiva. The jiva is anadi. What we are talking about is the birth and the death of the physical body. And therefore, anything which is born is subject to death, is subject to modifications. The Shad Bhava Vikaraha, the birth, growth, then stabilization, then decay, and then finally death. And then it is Sukha Dukkhanam Bhogayatanam. It is the Ayatanam, the Ashraya for Bhoga. It is the locus by which one experiences Sukha and Dukkha, the results of Punya and Papa. So why do we say that the physical body is karma sanchitam? Because the karma does not merely end with the birth. The birth has been given so that one uh, reduces or experiences the results of previous karmas. So by being born, you have created a physical body, which is the receptacle, which is the medium through which one experiences sukha and dukkha. And whatever punya we have done in the past, that punya is used up by the experiences of happiness through this physical body, and whatever papa we have done in the past, sins we have committed in the past, is exhausted by the experience of suffering, dukkha, in this physical body. So the purpose of birth is to experience all the sukha and dukkha. That is the karma kanda view of what the purpose of birth is. But the Jnanakanda view, which we'll come to, which we are essentially in the process of, is using this physical body to gain the jnana with which we can escape this beginningless cycle of births and deaths. So the Sharira is the Sukha Dukkha Bhogayatanam. But now that we have the Manushya Janma, the human life, and with which comes the opportunity to do Vedanta Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam, we must use this opportunity, this rare opportunity that we have been given of a human birth, not only to like experience Sukha and Dukkha, but to rather focus our efforts towards achieving Jnana. So that was the 12th verse that Adi Shankaracharya had talked about. Now we will go to the next verse. This verse is going to be about the subtle body. So we had completed the description of the physical body, the Sthula Shariram in verse number 12. In verse number 13, we look at the Sukshma Shariram or the subtle body. Pancha Prana Mano Buddhi Dashendriya Samanvitam Apanchikrita Bhutotham Sukshmangam Bhoga Sadhanam. So this subtle body, let us look at, before we go into the word by word meaning of this, let's look at the general features of the subtle body. So what does subtle body mean? Why do we call it subtle? Why do we call it sukshma? It's called sukshma because while we directly experience it. So so by the subtle body, what we mean, there are many parts to it. Essentially, the mind, the intellect, etc. Pancha prana. We are going to come to what those components are. So the activities of the mind are directly perceptible to us. So our mind, we can directly know. So if there is a thought that occurs in the mind, we automatically know it. If there is a happiness that occurs in the mind, a sukha vritti, we automatically know it. Similarly, if there is a sadness that appears in the mind, a dukkha vritti, that also we know automatically. But we do not know we do not directly perceive the minds of others. So I can infer that somebody is happy, I can infer that somebody else is sad, but I do not directly experience somebody else's happiness, directly experience somebody else's sadness, because while our mind, our intellect is directly perceptible by us, somebody else's mind, somebody else's intellect is not directly perceptible to us. It is not. So it is subtle. So in that respect, it is subtle in nature. It is not visible to other people. Secondly, it is created out of the 5 subtle elements, the apanchikrita sukshma bhutam. So in the physical body, it is created by the panchikrita mahabhutam. And that is why we are able to, everybody is able to directly perceive it. Whereas the sukshma sharira, the mind, is a creation of apanchikrita sukshma bhuta. It is a creation of the same space, fire, water, air, earth, but it is apanchikritam. And because it is apanchikritam, it is sukshma, it is not visible to others, even though it is visible to us. Thirdly, the Sukshma Sharira also is subject to various changes, just like the physical body. Now, again, this is something that we all know, we all experience. We have different moods. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are humorous, sometimes we are angry. All of these are various states of mind. The mind constantly keeps changing. If we try to sit down to do some meditation, all those people who meditate will know what the experience is, how quickly the mind tries to move from the mantra that one is trying to meditate into something else. So you have to constantly keep bringing it back to the object of meditation. Why is that? Because the nature of the mind is such. The nature of the sukshma sharira is that it is subject to constant modification, and it requires, and it cannot be held permanently into one spot. That is a very, very difficult thing, an impossible thing almost. So it is also subject to change, just like the physical body. Now, the if you look at the duration of the sukshma sharira, it is longer compared to the physical body, because the sukshma sharira persists across different janmas. Now, if we look at the physical body, the lifetime of it is one particular birth. When there is a birth for it, and then there's a death for it, and then after that, in the next birth, you don't get the same physical body; you get something else. But the mind that we have in this birth is not something that came into being in this life alone. It was present in the previous life. It will be present in the future lives also. Which is why, if you look at some children who may be like just 2 or 3 years old, but they'll have great proficiency in certain fields. They'll be great experts in music. They will naturally compose music. Or some people may be like naturally gifted in like in something else. They may have extraordinary talents that without any training, they seemingly have those extraordinary talents. Why is that? The reason for that is because the mind that the jiva has in any one birth, the mind is not born. The mind persists from the previous birth. So all the sadhana, all the efforts that have been put in to achieve expertise, to hone that talent in any one particular field, that talent will remain. And the next time the opportunity comes to display that talent, or if there is if the samskara, so each time we experience something, we do an effort towards something, it forms a samskara in our mind. And that samskara, the more that we keep doing an effort, that samskara becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And the next birth, when something triggers that samsara, immediately whatever we have learned in the previous birth, whatever expertise that we have developed in the previous birth, they immediately manifests itself into this birth also. And the reason for that is because the Sukshma Sharira persists. Now, there is a corollary to this. What does this mean? It means that it is whatever opportunity we have for Vedanta in this birth, we must grab it. We must expend that effort towards it. Because even if we do not get moksha in this birth, the effort that we have put towards Vedanta will create samskaras in our mind, will create samskaras in that Sukshma Sharira. And the next birth that we get, suppose we don't have a moksha in this birth, the next birth, some future birth that we get, if that samskara is awakened, immediately whatever has been learnt, whatever sadhana that has been done in the past life will immediately manifest. And therefore, we do not have to start from scratch. It is never too late to study Vedanta, even if it does not give the desired effort or desired result in this life. Whatever the mind has taken in, that latent impressions created will be retained for use in future births. And this we can see from our own experience of these child prodigies. And Shruti also says it. Tam vidya karmani samanvarabhete purva prajnacha. Whatever actions that we take become samskaras. That is why in Shastra and Sampradaya, we keep saying, keep doing good actions, learn good things until the last breath. Let us not waste any moment. Let us use it for fruitful activity. Even if we do not get the results, no good deed, no deed will go wasted. It will create a result. So when does the Sukshma Sharira get resolved? It does not get resolved in one birth. It persists across birth. It only gets resolved when the entire Srishti goes into Pralayam. At that point in time, the Sukshma Sharira gets resolved during that Pralayam. But even then, the latent impressions formed will still remain. Okay. And finally, the Sukshma Sharira serves as a means to interact with the world. It is through the sense organs, the mind and the intellect, we are able to perceive the world. We are able to see the world. What the entire conceptualization of the world into the form that we see it is because of us being able to see it, hear it, smell it, touch it, taste it. If there was a sixth sense that we had, then our idea of the world itself will be different. Because the very notion of how we see the world, that it has these colors, that it has these sounds, is because of the Sukshma Sharira, the sense organs through which we are able to interact with the world. And therefore, the Sukshma Sharira is an important means to interact with the world. So these are the 5 features of this of the subtle body. Now we can go through each one of them. So Acharya says in the second line, Sukshmangam. So Sukshmangam means it is the subtle body. Angam means body. Sukshma means subtle. It is not visible. So in after death, when we say, oh, he's gone. Who is gone? It's not the physical body. The physical body is right there. It is not the Atma either, Satchidananda Atma, because the Atma is always pervading. Atma has nowhere to go. So the Atma is also there, the physical body is also there. So who is gone? Who has left? It is the subtle body. So just like when we move houses, now if you like a house is vacated and for a long time nobody lives in that house, what will happen? The house will become dilapidated. It will become dirty. It will stop functioning. Many parts will not work when the tenant leaves it. Similarly, when the tenant called the Sukshma Sharira leaves the physical body, that physical body also starts becoming dilapidated. It starts decaying. So there is a lot of the reason why the physical body has this health is because of the blessing of the Sukshma Sharira that is sitting in here. specifically the prana that is there in the Sukshma Sharira. We'll come to what that is. Now, then Acharya says, Bhoga sadhanam. It is a means of experiencing. In the previous verse, we had said the physical body, the Sthula Sharira, was a Bhoga ayatanam. It is the locus of experience. Here, Shankara Bhagavad is saying the Sukshma Sharira is Bhoga sadhanam. It is a means of experiencing. It is a group of instruments required for experiencing. And so, what are those group of instruments? Acharya says, Pancha Prana Manobuddhi Dashendriya Samanvitam. It consists of 5 pranas, the manaha, which is the mind, buddhi, which is the intellect, and the 10 senses. So, what do we mean by 10 senses? 10 senses means the Pancha Jnanendriya and the Pancha Karmendriya. So, Pancha Jnanendriya is the sense of sight, hearing, taste, touch, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So, Shabda is hearing, Sparsha is touch, Rupa, sight, Rasa, taste, Gandha, smell. I had left out smell. Yeah. So, those are the 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas. So, the hand, the apani, the hands, pada, legs, vak, speech, payu, excretory organ, upastha, the procreatory organ. So these are the dasha indriyan. Now the mana is the mind or the emotional instrument, and then buddhi is the intellectual instrument. And then you have the pancha pranas. So prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. There are many more pranas, but typically these are the 5 pranas that we are referring to. So prana means the respiratory system, the breathing in. The apana is the excretory system. So the downward moving excretory system. Then vyana is the circulatory system. So the blood circulation, etc., is all happening because of the vyana. Then samana is the digestive system. So the digestion, the jatharagni that we talk about, the digestion of the food is because of the samana prana. And then udana, which is the, you can call it the cleansing system. So things like vomiting, tears, etc., are the action of the udana prana. So we have pancha prana, pancha jnanendriya, pancha karmendriya, then manaha, buddhi. These are the 17 instruments in total. And what Acharya is saying is the last thing that we refer to is apanchikrita bhutotham. It is a product of the apanchikrita bhuta, or the subtle 5 elements. So that was the description of the subtle body. Now we will look at the next verse, which is the description of the karana sharira, or the causal body. Anadya vidya anirvachya karanopadhiruchyate upadhitritayadanyam atmanam avadharayet. So Karanopadhihi uchyate. The third body is called Karana Sharira. So the word Upadhi here means body. So what is the Karana Sharira? What is the nature of the Karana Sharira? Now, Karana Sharira, essentially, Karana means cause. Karya means effect. So Karana Sharira means causal body. And when you say causal body, what we mean, it is the body in the seed or unmanifest condition. Now, for the physical body, we had said that it is available for my knowledge and the others' knowledge. The subtle body, we had said, is available for my knowledge, but not for others' knowledge. Now, the causal body is what? It is not available for my knowledge as well as others' knowledge. So why is that the case? Because it is in a seed form, an unmanifest form. We do not directly perceive it. So just like a huge banyan tree, where did it come from? It came from a sapling. And where did the sapling come from? It came from a seed. No, in the seed, in the bijavastha, the karanavastha, in the seed form, the entire banyan tree is stored in a potential, in a latent state. But we are not able to see its complete potential. We are not able to see how that seed will manifest into this banyan tree. Similarly, this Karana Sharira, or is the causal body through which the entire Sukshma Sharira and the Sthula Sharira, the entire what constitutes a jiva is encoded into this Karana Sharira. That is why when the subtle body also gets resolved during the pralayam, we had talked about it very briefly in the previous verse. That subtle body's latent impressions are still preserved in the Karanavastha, in the Karana Sharira. So from one srishti to the other srishti, all those jivas who haven't attained moksha, it's not that they will immediately become mukta purushas because the subtle body is resolved. No. All those latent impressions are still preserved in this Karana Sharira. And when the next srishti comes, that Karana Sharira will manifest the Sukshma Sharira, the mind, and then Ishvara will manifest the physical body based on the karma. So all those jivas who have performed one karma and then srishti ends, or many karmas and the srishti ends, all those punya papa do not get lost. They are preserved in the next srishti in the form of the Karana Sharira. So anyway, coming back to the nature of the Karana Sharira, it is the subtlest form of the jiva. And just like in the seed form, we do not know the features of what kind of a tree it grows from. Similarly, the jiva, we will not be able to discern what kind of a jiva it is from the Karana Sharira. That is why it is not available to us, it is not available to others also. It is avyaktam, it is inaccessible to any instrument of knowledge. This is another thing that Acharya did not refer to, Sannidhanam did not refer to in the talk, but he briefly talked about Satkaryavadam. That is, the effect is persistent in the cause. This is what we are talking about actually, this Karana Shariram that we are talking to, which is why I was pleasantly surprised when we heard this from Sannidhanam today of all days, when we are going to cover this verse about the Karana Sharira, because he briefly referred to Satkaryavada. What Satkaryavada means, so there are two kinds of schools in Vedanta, not Vedanta, in Shastra. There are two kinds of schools. There's one called Satkaryavada, there's another called Asatkaryavada. Asatkaryavada says that the effect is not present in the cause, but a new effect is created during the moment of creation. So it comes from nothing. So a new thing is created. So when the potter makes the pot, that pot did not exist in the clay, but he creates the new pot. That is called Asatkaryavada. That is, the karya was not, it was asat, in the sense it did not exist in the past. So some things comes from nothing. That's what they're saying. Whereas Satkaryavada, which is what we in Vedanta, the Sankhyas, the yogis, etc., accept. What we are saying is the effect is present in the cause itself in a subtle form, in an unmanifest, in an avyakta form. This Karana Sharira that we're talking about. So whether we are referring to a pot, we are saying that the pot is present in a unmanifest state in the clay. It is not that the potter creates something, a new pot out of nothing, because something cannot be created from nothing. Existence will always be present. Nothing new can be created. What happens is something is unmanifest in its cause and then becomes manifest as an effect. That's what it means. So that vada is called Satkaryavada. And we in Advaita hold on to the Satkaryavada. We believe that we hold that the effect is present in a causal form, in a Karanavastha, in a Bijavastha, in a Avyaktavastha, in its cause. And that form is what is referred to here for the jiva as the Karana Sharira. Then, what is the material? The body we said was composed of the gross 5 elements, the Panchikrita Mahabhutam. The subtle body was comprised of the subtle 5 elements. So, what is the causal body made of? And the answer to that is it is the ultimate causal matter. It is one. It has several names in Shastra. Some people call it Prakriti. That which is capable of evolution is Prakriti. Pradhana, that which is the repository or store of everything in the potential form. Maya, Shakti, Avyaktam, Avidya, Mula Vidya, all of these are synonyms for what? That one causal matter because of which this creation appears. So this Karana Sharira is that causal matter. Then the function. What is the function of the Karana Sharira? We briefly referred to it previously. The function of the Karana Sharira is to act as a storehouse when the subtle body dissolves during pralayam, during between srishti. So what happens is every srishti, at the end of srishti, there will be a pralayam, wherein the entire srishti is resolved. So just like the at an individual level, when the physical body is resolved, the subtle body persists. At a universal level, when the entire creation is resolved, it resolves into its causal state, into avyaktam or prakriti. And each jiva resolves into its own causal state, into the karana sharira. So matter can never be destroyed. It can never be created. It can never be destroyed. So all the physical bodies and all the subtle bodies, they cannot be destroyed. We are not asatkaryavadis. We do not say that, neither do we say that something comes out of nothing, nor do we say that something becomes nothing. So there is no creation nor destruction. There is only manifestation and unmanifestation. That is what Satkaryavada is all about. Whereas the Nayayikas, the Nyaya philosophers, are Asatkaryavadis, where they say something comes from nothing and then it gets destroyed back into nothing. No, we do not agree with that. So the function of the Karana Sharira is to act as a receptacle, a storehouse for all the physical and subtle bodies, which all get resolved and go into this unmanifest Abhyakta Avastha during Pralayam. That storehouse is called Karana Sharira. So when the Srishti begins after the Pralaya, which is an eternal cyclic process, there is no one Srishti and one Pralayam. There have been many infinite number of Srishtis, infinite number of Pralayams. It is a continuous sequence. Out of that Karana Sharira is born the next Sukshma Sharira, along with all the Sanchita Karmas. Therefore, there is never the case that the karma that one has performed gets destroyed at any point. Even during Pralayam, those karmas do not get destroyed. They resolve back into this Karana Shariram. So whether that is Punya Karma or Papa Karma, the next creation, next Srishti, whatever is the Punya and Papa, according to it, the next subtle body is created. So the Prarabdha Karma will bring the next physical body and birth in the appropriate surroundings. And the duration. So this is the longest of the three Shariras. So the physical body lasts one life. The subtle body lasts one Srishti. The Karana Sharira lasts between Srishtis also. It does not get destroyed even during Pralayam. So the Karana Sharira that each of us has been present in an infinite number of Srishtis. It has been there from a beginningless time. However, it ends at one point. When is that? At moksha. So through Videha Mukti, through Jnanam, all the Karana Sharira becomes resolved. And once that Karana Sharira is resolved, that's it. There is no birth. And the end of the Karana Sharira happens at Jnana, at moksha. So anyway, coming to the verse, Shankaracharya says, Avidya karanopadihi uchyate. This avidya or mula vidya or prakriti or maya is the karana sharira, karana upadhi. And when did it begin? Acharya says, anadi avidya. It is a beginningless ignorance. It has been present through beginningless time. Through multiple srishtis it has been present. And it is anirvachya. This is the crucial point. What does anirvachya mean? Anirvachya means that which cannot be spoken. But we have been talking about Karana Sharira for so long. So what does the word anirvachya mean? It means tattva anyatvabhyam anirvachaniyam. Sadasat vilakshanam. We cannot say it is sat. We cannot say it is asat either. What does that mean? What is sat? Sat is chit or atma. So only consciousness is what can be called sat. Why is that? Because it is the only thing that exists in all periods of time. This world, this physical body cannot be called sat because we know that it has a beginning, it has an end. The subtle body cannot be called sat because it gets resolved during pralayam. And then a new body is created, a new subtle body is created in the next srishti. So that also has a beginning, that also has an end. Now the Karana Sharira, what about it? The Karana Sharira may not have a beginning, but it certainly has an end. When Jnana comes, the Karana Sharira goes. So it cannot be called Sat. So can you call it Asat then? No, we cannot call it Asat either. What does Asat mean? Asat means that which nobody can say is present at any time. So it's like Muyal Kumbu in Tamil we say. Muyal Kumbu. Or in Sanskrit, Shashashinga, the hare's horn. Now, a cow may have horns, but does a rabbit, a hare have horns? No. Can anyone say that a rabbit has horn? They can say, but nobody would have perceived a hare's horn at any time, in any period in time. Neither in the past, nor in the present, nor in the future. It is an impossibility. So, an asat object is that which does not exist in any period of time. A sat object is that which exists in every period of time. So what is anirvachya? That which cannot be said to be sat or asat. It is neither that which exists in all periods of time, nor is it something which does not exist at all. So it is sadasadbhyam anirvachaniyam. Sadasat vilakshanam. What is that? That is mithya. And because it is mithya, it can end. So Karana Sharira, we say it can go with Jnana. Why is it? How can it go with Jnana? You may ask. Because we say it is Sadasat Vilakshanam. And when Atma Jnana comes, that Atma Jnana will remove this avidya. Because Jnana is exactly opposite to Ajnana. The reason why that is the case, the reason why Karana Sharira will have an end is because of its mithyatva. That is why mithyatvam is a very significant concept in Advaita. The Dvaitavadis will call us Mayavadis, etc., as to insult. But we should not worry about that. Because that mithyatva concept, the reason why all our acharyas have spent so much effort to prove the mithyatva of the Jagat is if you do not prove the mithyatva of the Jagat, then moksha itself is an impossibility. Because what does that mean? In other siddhantas, moksha is when they go to Vaikuntha at one point in time, or Kailasha, or whatever. And then there they serve Ishvara, either Mahavishnu or Parameshwara, Shiva. What we say in Advaita is anything which involves and something which emerges out of a process that will be finite. If it has a beginning, it will have an end. So if you go to Vaikuntha or Kailasha, then sure, you will definitely come back also. Because such a moksha which has a beginning, will necessarily have an end also. Therefore, the only possibility of a moksha is that which is eternal. An erroneous notion of samsara leads one to suffer, leads one to have multiple births. And what is that erroneous notion? That is this avidya, this ignorance. Avidya of what? Avidya of our true nature. So the ignorance of the rope causes the adhyasa of the snake. The ignorance of Atma causes the adhyasa of the Karana Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, and Sthula Sharira. And when that ignorance is removed because of Jnana, all these adhyasas are removed. And when adhyasa is removed, samsara is removed. That's how you get moksha. So what is the process of, why do we say Jnana leads to moksha? This is Shankaracharya is tying in with the initial verses of the Atma Bodha. He is saying that reason why Jnana is necessary for moksha is because Jnana removes avidya, which is the cause of samsara. By removing avidya, you remove adhyasa, these shariratrayas. By removing adhyasa, you remove samsara, the sukha and dukkha, all these experiences that we call samsara. And that is the reason. So we have talked about the three bodies so far, the sthula sharira, the sukshma sharira, and the karana sharira. All along, whenever we talk about aham, I, what is our experience? That I is always a mixture of Atma and these Sukshma Shariras. So the Atma and the Anatma is always mixed up as this I. We know that this physical body is different from us, but we still react when there is a problem to the physical body, as though it is a problem for us. Similarly, we know that the mind is different from us. Those who have come to Vedanta know that the mind is different from us, but still we react to anger and sadness, happiness, joy, all of that, as though I am angry, I am sad, I am happy. And with the physical body, we say I am tall, I'm short, I'm a human being, I'm a Brahmana, I'm a Kshatriya, etc. I'm a male, I'm a female. All of these are what? You have I am, then something. So each time we say I am, it is never I am only, it's always I am something. I am happy, I am tall, I am a Brahmana, I am a male, I am a father. So this mixing up of I with the not I, the mixing up of Atma with the sthula sukshma karana sharira. This mixture is what is the fundamental cause of samsara. This is what we call as adhyasa, this mixing up of two things. And because we say I am tall, I am short, I am sick, I am healthy, I am angry, I am sad, I am rich, I am poor, all of these are the mixing up of Atma and Anatma. And that is the adhyasa, which is the cause of all sorts of problems. And that is why, before starting the Brahma Sutra, Shankara Bhagavatpada wrote Adhyasa Bhashyam. And the very first line he says, Yushmad Asmat Pratyaya Gocharayoho Vishaya Vishayinoho Tamah Prakashavad Viruddha. That is, what is I and what is not I. Yushmad is referring to everything which is not I, is being mixed up. He says, Satyanrite Mithuni Kritya. That Mithuni Karana means the mixing up of what? Satya. Satya means Sat. And Anrita, the unreal, the mithya physical body, the mithya subtle body, the mithya karana sharira, this mixing up of I with the not I, satyanute mithuni kritya, aham idam, mama idam iti naisargikoyam loka vyavaharaha. I am this is mine. All of this is what? It's not like a thing that's happening now or yesterday. It's been going on, naisargikaha, naturally happening since time immemorial, since a beginningless time. So this removal, the presence of this Satyanrita Mithunikaranam, this mixing up of the real with the unreal, is what is adhyasa, which leads to all sorts of problems. So avidya leads to adhyasa, adhyasa leads to samsara. The removal of samsara is moksha. The removal of samsara requires the removal of adhyasa. The removal of adhyasa requires the removal of ajnana. The removal of ajnana requires jnana. And how to get that jnana? Atmanam avadharayet. Avadharayet means get a clear knowledge of the Atma, a direct knowledge of the Atma, a conviction about what the Atma is. Anyway, so in the introductory 5 verses, Shankaracharya, as I said, had said that knowledge alone gives this, alone removes ignorance. Knowledge alone is the cause for moksha. Now he has established the reasoning behind it. What is it? Knowledge removes ignorance. Ignorance removes adhyasa. Adhyasa removes samsara. Removal of samsara is moksha. And what is this Atma? What kind of Atma Jnana should we get? The Atma Jnana is Upadhitritayad Anyam. This Atma is different from the 3 physical bodies. Upadhi means body. Tritayad, these kind of three physical bodies that we talked about, the Atma is different from these physical bodies. So therefore, know that Atma Jnana is I am. I am. That is the Atma Jnana, not I am a male, I am rich, I am poor. No, I am. All those problems, all those benefits that you have, all the joys and the sorrows belong to these 3 physical bodies. You are different from these 3 physical bodies. I am is the only reality. Anything else that is added on to top of that is a superimposition. And the moment that superimposition comes, problems will naturally follow. And that clear conviction, I am the only thing that exists. Nothing else exists. That clear conviction is Atma Jnana. We will deal with more in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti.